And I just realized when I was taking a pee that the word they use for me is homicidal maniac. But that's the correct term, right?
How does a narcissistic, manipulative killer go from this to this?
Do you actually want coffee though?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get you one in a minute.
When Thayne Ormsby was invited to the police station for questioning about a triple murder, he came willingly. He was adamant he would get help from the police in any way he could, as he was a man of honor. A few hours later, 2 detectives made him crack, but this was no easy feat. How did they use Thayne's personality against him? And why did he do a full 180 on his behavior in the middle of the interrogation? This is the full story of Thayne Ormsby and the horrific case of the Amity triple murder. This story begins in a town so small, it had never recorded a murder before. Amity, Maine had 238 residents in June 2010. This is a place where everyone knows each other, where people come for peace, quiet, natural splendor, and a place where they can build a cabin and live closer to nature than to other people. Of course, this might not be for everybody, but for Jeffrey Ryan, it was perfect. He was a 55-year-old Vietnam War veteran. The war had left him disabled, and he had no love for the chaos in the big cities. He just wanted to raise his family peacefully. Jeff had a 10-year-old son, Jesse, and he loved him more than anything in the world. Jeff had been married to Jesse's mother for 4 years. After their divorce, Jesse would spend his time between their 2 homes. But in the summer of 2010, Jesse was living with his dad in his Amity mobile home. On June 22, 2010, the father and son welcomed a friend, Jason Dehan, into their home. The 3 spent a relaxing evening together. Jesse played video games while Jeff and Jason chatted away into the evening. But that day, the 3 of them would get butchered in the most sinister way. Jeff was stabbed in the back while he was looking inside his shed. Jason was stabbed inside the living room. Little Jesse was stabbed last after watching his father and friends suffer the same fate. He died alone, afraid, and confused. Jason survived the attack and was struggling to run to his car outside when he was pinned down again and his throat split. The next day, it was Jason's brother that began to worry first. He knew Jason was visiting Jeff the night before, but he'd never spent the night there. It was strange, his brother never made it home. Jason's brother drove by Jeff's house a few times until he decided to snoop in. Finally, he looked through the window for any clues and saw a huge amount of blood inside the house. He couldn't see any bodies just yet, but he didn't want to face this alone. So he called his and Jason's dad, Robert. Together, they discovered Jeff's body lying in a pool of blood next to his garden shed. Jesse's body was also found inside his room. Hands trembling, the men called the police, and the officers assisted them in finding Jason. A few hours later, his body was found in the bushes, just a few feet away from Jeff's home. Jeff's pickup truck was found burned to a crisp in Weston, Maine, a few days later. Imagine hearing this news in a town where nothing ever happens. What's more, in a place where everyone knows everyone, no one expects to have a serial killer.
3 people are dead, including a 10-year-old boy, and state police are calling their deaths a homicide.
Now, Amity's already tiny population had been reduced to 235 residents, and people were afraid to leave their homes.
Well, neighbors near this home and family of the victim say this is both horrifying and frightening. Horrifying because of the nature of the crime, and frightening because they say they don't know who the person responsible is and where that person might be.
Who was this monster? Who could stab a 10-year-old boy? And why? Now the police had to figure out if Jeff or Jason had any enemies. In a small town like Amity, it should be easy, right? Well, they dug and they dug, but they found nothing. Jeff had a loving family and led a peaceful life. So did Jason. There was nothing linking these people or little Jesse to such a frenzied attack. While the detectives tried to unearth the lives of Jeff, Jason, and Jesse, the forensics team searched Jeff's home for any evidence. Soon enough, they discovered a 4th DNA profile inside the house. The laboratory confirmed an unknown male had been inside Jeff's home within the last few days. Meanwhile, people appeared on TV to say how scared they are, not knowing who could be the killer in such a small community.
Well, we were quite scared, to tell you the truth. And this is really, you know, for something like this to happen in a small town like this, you just can't believe it. Can't believe it.
This is Bob Strout. He and his wife Joy were close to Jeff. They were the parents of Tamara, Jeff's ex-girlfriend, with whom Jeff had a teenage daughter. Remember Bob's name. He would have a lot more to do with the case apart from being the victim's, so to say, father-in-law. As it turns out, Bob and Joy offered their home temporarily to 20-year-old Thayne Ormsby. Thane's mom was good friends with Tamara, so in exchange for free rent, Thayne helped Bob and Joy with housework, gardening, and taking care of their pheasants. Here's the catch. At the time of the murders, Thayne lived with Bob and Joy, but at the time of the investigation, he moved all the way out to Dover, New Hampshire. He was now living with Bob's son. Clearly, the police thought he was a close family friend if both father and son shared their homes freely. But it was a bit odd he'd moved out of the house he was at when the murders happened. As far as the police were concerned, Thayne had to be questioned. The police first questioned Thayne on June 29th, a week after the triple murder. Thayne appeared friendly, confident, and cooperative. He was happy to provide his fingerprints and DNA sample, claiming he just wanted the killer caught. 3 days later, the investigators decided Thayne looked like he was withholding information on his first questioning. They already had a few clues that he might have been somehow involved in the incident or at least knew something crucial about it. So they invited him to Dover Police Station for a second interrogation. Again, he appeared confident and cooperative.
Because you know the family better than anybody, right?
I'll do my best. I don't know that I know them better than anybody, but
Well, you know them better than I do. That's
perhaps.
You know?
Notice how Dale, the detective, is acting friendly, perhaps overly friendly, with Thayne. This way he can build a rapport and let Thayne know he is in a safe place where he can be himself.
She's a piece of work, you know?
Oh, yeah.
She thought I was this cat's ass. She thinks you're gorgeous, by the way.
I know.
Oh, really?
Here, Dale is talking about Tanya, Bob and Joy's other daughter, and Tamara's sister. To Dale, Tanya was just the witness who confirmed where Thayne lived at the time of the murders. But Dale is doing two things here. On the one hand, he's inviting Thayne to share his personal feelings about her, to see if there was any animosity between them. On the other hand, he's reinforcing Thayne's inflated sense of self. He's already spoken to Thayne on June 29th, and he knows he's pretty self-important. By doing that, Thayne will gain confidence and start to make mistakes.
Oh, what? You don't want
You've
to
been
find
working
your
this. You've been working this.
I hope I didn't mix these up.
Find out.
Yeah, you'll know.
Where's yours?
No, if I make that, I'll be going to the bathroom in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
As the second detective, Adam, joins the room, he behaves just as friendly with Thayne. There's no good cop, bad cop here. Thayne loved being the center of attention so much, he began to tell Adam his whole life.
And what really went wrong is I got engaged. That's what went wrong.
Who'd you get engaged to?
Cindy Courier, and she left me for my best friend 2 weeks before the wedding.
Thayne was not asked about this topic, and it was completely irrelevant to the investigation, but it was a good baseline for Thayne's character, and perhaps his frustration.
What person in your life do you think you most respect?
Person in my life, living person.
Yeah, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Andrew Beardsley.
Who's that?
He was my coach, mentor, I consider him, and literature teacher in high school. And he's the nephew to Bill Beardsley, who's just running for governor.
There it is. Thayne wanted to be associated with important people. He really wanted to be seen as important, famous, or special. Then he also wanted to appear super smart, and Dale and Adam immediately caught up on that.
And I took a class on Tolkien. I love Lord of the Rings, you know. Somewhere early in The Hobbit. The Hobbit's my favorite book.
I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. You watch that?
Yeah.
Zero. Yeah.
Well, there's this more.
Is that the one with Precious, the little Precious? That guy, yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah, Gollum. Yeah.
Nothing to do with the other show there.
Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
No.
Not reading.
No. Different.
Who would think Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter are related? And what seasoned detective would express himself? I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. Do you see what Adam and Dale are doing? They're downplaying their own intelligence and education to, once again, reinforce Thayne's inflated sense of self. With his ego validated, now the detectives are ready to ask Thayne about the case.
What type of person do you think would do this?
No, I haven't given that much thought.
Sure, except this isn't New York City. Amity had 238 residents. Now it had 235. When something like this happens in such a small place, people give it a lot of thought. The murders were quite literally all the people of Amity were discussing these days, except Thayne, who appeared uninterested and even moved towns right after the murder.
Someone would have to be cold, greedy maybe, I don't know. Someone would have to be just heartless. I mean, I never met his son, Mariah's little brother, but who could do that?
Well, you never know. I mean, the biggest thing that we don't understand is reasons. I mean, there's a reason for everything, and mistakes happen. And that's why even a computer has a delete key,
Right.
Mistakes happen.
Here, Dale is giving Thayne an opportunity. If he killed the 3 friends, maybe it was an impulsive mistake or a strange reason behind it. Something that could reduce his sentence or even justify his awful act. Dale is literally offering Thayne a list of possible scenarios he could use to help himself.
Wrong place, wrong time. Panic, self-defense, who knows?
Before Dale dives any further, he lets Thayne know he's not under arrest.
Do you understand you're not under arrest?
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
that I'm
If you ever want to leave, you just tell me. All right, all I ask is don't be rude about it. Just say things
I'd be a little bit shocked if I were under arrest, to tell you the truth.
Did you notice how the most calculated killers often act on their high horse when they're interrogated by the police? After reading Thayne his Miranda rights, Dale asked him again about what kind of person would commit the murders.
Someone just with no love for life, no love for things that grow. Yeah. And I mean, what we know about Tolkien and Tolkien's writing, you seem like you know a little bit more about Tolkien. Mm-hmm. It's, his main themes are hope and hopelessness and a love for things that grow.
Is Thayne trying to say he's Tolkien's arch nemesis? Watch what he says here.
When we find the bad guy, what should happen?
Well, I imagine you're going to read him his rights. Formality.
Just as Dale had read him his rights a minute ago, has Thayne gotten so confident that he believes he can toy with the police like that? He is really underestimating these detectives. Also, Thayne did not pick the reason bait even a second time.
I cannot think of any good reason something like that could happen.
That's because at that point, Thayne still thought he could evade justice. But the detectives already knew he had a criminal record.
Did you graduate from Ellsworth High School?
I didn't graduate.
Why you didn't graduate? Okay. What happened there?
That's a long story too.
We got plenty of time. You got plenty of time and coffee and even candy bars if you want.
No. Okay.
Thayne described how he did some silly things in high school that ended with him being arrested and never graduating.
What was the stupidest thing you ever did?
Stupid.
Even if you didn't get caught. Stupid.
Oh no, I got caught. And I always get caught.
You always get caught.
Oh yeah. It's the weirdest thing. Anything I ever do, there's always someone looking, And it's just like, will I do anything wrong?
Thayne tried to use high morality mask here, basically saying he wasn't implicated in the murders as he would get caught if he did. But the cops saw right through this.
We stole a gun from my friend's house. This same Michael, who is now marrying my ex-fiancée in the same very church that we were getting married in.
Someone Thayne ended the victim in this whole story. But wait a minute, he's a hero too.
And what had happened is I turned myself in. Mm-hmm. I found out the police were looking for me. I said, okay. I walked right in and said, hi, my name's Thayne Ormsby, and I'm here to turn myself in.
Suddenly, in his own story, Thayne emerges as a justice-seeking hero, realizing he's done something wrong and owning up to it. He was most likely looking for a more lenient punishment, another self-serving act specific to people like Thayne. Here's a quick clinical description of narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder involves a pattern of self-centered, arrogant thinking and behavior, a lack of empathy and consideration for other people, and an excessive need for admiration. Others often describe people with NPD as cocky, manipulative, selfish, patronizing, and demanding. Think Thayne matches the description? Yeah, Dale and Adam saw it too. Throughout the first part of the interrogation, Thayne was calm, relaxed, and clearly manipulative. But as Adam started asking him about his relationship with Jeff, his posture suddenly changed to a more tense, engaged one. However, the way Thayne looks Adam in the eye can be another form of manipulation, aimed to appear confident and truthful. Few people look detectives in the eye for such long periods of time.
And tell me about that conversation, how that go.
We didn't really have a conversation. I mean, he came in and he talked to Bob and Joy, and I was there.
And you knew at this point that he is Mariah's father.
Yeah, I know.
And you guys hit it off? I hit it off?
Yeah, we get along. We were cool.
According to Thayne, he had 2 interactions with Jeff. First, Jeff visited Bob and Joy at the time he lived with them. Then, Jeff invited Thayne to come over to his home, and he did, about a week later. Dale asked him to draw a plan of Jeff's trailer home. This way, it would be harder for Thayne to retract his statements or change his story later.
So like I said, I was walking down the road and he was mowing his lawn right around here somewhere. And we walked in and were talking, and I met his dog. I walked over and petted his dog.
Within the minutes of recounting his meetings with Jeff, Thayne started sharing conflicting stories, and Dale confronted him about it.
I do have a bicycle.
Right.
You know this much.
Okay.
But there are only 2 occasions I've met Jeff. The one where he comes down to the house.
Right.
And I combine those 2 occasions.
Okay.
A week later, I come back.
You said the very first time he met you, you asked him to get a job and stuff, and he said, come on.
2 different occasions. I combined the 2 in one, just to be simple.
No, each time you were here. How many times you were at this house?
Once.
Once.
I've only been there once.
Why would you do that? Why would you confuse me like that? I confuse easy.
Because it's irrelevant. Because it's...
Well, it's not really irrelevant because we got 3 people dead. So that's why it makes it very relevant.
I understand.
Especially when people are not telling the truth.
I understand, but I mean, I had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah, not having to do something with it is not a reason. Then Dale asked Thayne why he denied having a bike when they found bike prints at Jeff's home. It almost gets funny for a second.
Today I asked you if you had a bike, you said no.
Yeah.
Now I'm confused. Why didn't you tell me you had a bike
Why
when I
didn't
asked
I
you?
tell you I had a bike? Because
There's all bike prints there.
I heard stories about biker gangs, and I didn't want to be confused with
No, I asked you that day pedal bike.
pedal bike. Okay, pedal bike.
You
Yeah, I have a
pedal.
pedal bike.
Right.
Straight out of a dark comedy. Here's the thing, the police already had Thayne's bike prints everywhere around Jeff's yard, and his DNA was inside the house. Yep, he was the unknown male. They had enough evidence to press him for a confession, but they wanted him to dig his own grave first.
When you say he showed you the house, did you go through the house? Did you take it room by room, or did you just say?
Did you go down in here?
No.
So you've never ever been down that hallway? So there's no way in hell that your DNA is going to be down in this area anywhere?
No.
Is what you're telling me.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. And there's no way in hell that your DNA is going to be back in here anywhere.
This was the beginning of the end for Thayne's confidence. Throughout the interrogation, Dale and Adam employed the read technique. This means that they begin by showing sympathy and offers of understanding and help, and continued by openly confronting Thayne. When Dale confronted Thayne with the evidence, he realized the detectives weren't as slow as he thought. He was already neck deep in his own lies.
Never met Jason.
Never met Jason either.
Well, now we have a problem.
Why?
All right. Inside that trailer, there's a bottle sitting there. 3 bottles. And in that trailer also, we have your DNA and fingerprints on one of the bottles. So, maybe you're mistaken about why that happened, but I want you to straighten it out now, okay? See this picture?
Yes.
3 bottles, right? This one's yours. One of these is Jason, and one of these is Jeff.
Dale had also spoken to Bob Strout, and Bob confirmed Thayne was at Jeff's house on Wednesday morning, the day after the murders, not a week or 2 before, as he'd said.
He says that you were up there Wednesday morning, Bob says that. You always get caught. And every time you ever get in trouble, you say, hey, you walk into the police station, here I am, this is it. That shows me you're a man of integrity, you're a very intelligent man, and the politics and all that stuff. You seem the type of guy that's very right, straightforward, and I just like, no, it is what it is.
Yep, appeal to that inflated ego again. As soon as Dale told Thayne he knew something went wrong, he started saying much more.
We went outside and came over here by the garden. I smoked a joint.
Down here by the garden area? I'm sorry?
And I smoked a joint with Jason.
As Dale pressed him more and more about the truth, Thayne finally realized he'd been caught.
Thayne. What's the truth?
I know you want the truth, but I'm gonna have to plead the fifth.
Okay. Does that mean you want to stop talking? Or?
For a minute. I'm gonna get another coffee.
Okay, well, here's what we do.
I'm gonna need to take a cigarette, and if you could bring me a joint, maybe.
This was Thayne's last attempt at trying to control the interrogation, a last display of power, making the cops get him coffee and asking for a joint he knew he couldn't get. Instead of getting a lawyer, he asked for a coffee and felt powerful about it. However, a few minutes later, he'd returned to the interrogation room with tears running down his face.
You're responsible for this, right?
I won't say.
Why don't you go have some, we'll get a cigarette break, we'll talk some more.
It's possible.
And it's going to be okay. All right? You're doing the right thing. You're a good boy. You're a good man. Yeah. You're not a boy, you're a man. And
No, don't call me that.
you don't think you're a man?
Not earned, not deserved.
If that's not a confession, I don't know what is.
When he gets back in here, I'll go get you one, alright? Do you actually want coffee though?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll get you one in a minute.
Yeah, a pretty shocking change considering how confident he was at the beginning. The question is Thayne crying because he just realized he got caught, or is he trying to get the detective's sympathy and get a lighter sentence?
This is the first time I've cried.
Yeah. Let it out. It's a lot to absorb, buddy. It's a lot to process.
Both detectives encouraged Thayne to let it out and open up. It was clearly too late to back out now.
Hey, buddy. Huh? Thayne, I want you to know that I'm here for you the best I can be. I cannot make you any promises about the media. I can't make you any promises about that. That's way over my head. I will go to bat for you.
Dale sounds like a father figure, but it's all to encourage Thayne to keep talking. After all, he needs a clear verbal confession and a murder motive. Watch on. It's about to get outrageous. First, Dale reads him his Miranda rights again and asks him to confirm he wasn't coerced into making a confession.
If I want to make sure now, you said you're willing to talk to me. I want to make sure you know that I didn't beat the hell out of you outside. You know, we were just outside talking there, and you kind of gave some statements about, I'm going to sleep easier tonight. You're going to tell me what happened.
I was afraid of that, honestly. And
You were afraid of what?
You scared me the night that day you left.
You were afraid of what?
I knew you were on to me, but yeah, I was afraid you were the bad cop and you were going to beat me up and beat it out there.
This is as excited as I get.
Thayne really believed he could paint himself as the victim again.
Well, obviously, I wasn't planning on getting caught.
Obviously.
Thayne knew he had to give a motive for the murders. Here's where it gets surreal.
Back in the day, there were 3 people that were the biggest dealers. I won't mention one, but the other 2 were Jeff Ryan.
And you wanted to rid the world of them.
Wow. Once again, Thayne sees himself as some sort of vigilante hero doing God's work. But there are just about a million holes in his story. 1, Jeff never sold drugs. There is no evidence and nobody backing this story. 2, is murder the right punishment for drug dealers? 3, what about Jason? What about 10-year-old Jesse? 4, a few minutes ago, Thayne openly admitted he smoked a joint with Jason and even asked the detective for a joint. It is absolutely disgusting that Thayne felt entitled as he claimed he did the right thing. Compulsive lying, impulsive behavior, and making others look worse in comparison are all traits associated with psychopaths. Here, Thayne is doing them all.
And I know he hurt. And he hurt
A lot of
a
people.
lot of people.
Thayne claimed Jeff hurt his daughter Mariah as a way of justifying his decision to murder him. But according to Jason's brother, Jeff had warned Thayne to stay away from his daughter. Most likely, the same Mariah he was talking about. So it was kind of the other way around. Thayne was dating Jeff's minor daughter and Jeff was not happy about it. At this point, we can consider 2 possible murder motives. 1, Thayne, narcissistic and psychopathic as he was, couldn't bear Jeff telling him off and protecting his daughter. So it was an exaggerated punishment for a small frustration. 2, Thayne just wanted to see what it was like to kill someone. Because really, who butchers 3 people, including a child, with a hunting knife? The motive might just be as bleak as that. Thayne was a thrill killer.
Have you ever killed before?
No.
I have to ask. And one of the reasons I asked, you're very proficient in what you did. Where did you learn this?
That's just it. Is
That's another thing that we're curious about. Did you learn how to do this from any military training, martial arts training, TV, movies, videos, video games? The way you said it was very proficient.
self-knowledge. I mean, it was my first time ever having anybody really.
Again, Dale is inflating Thane's ego, applauding him for his methods instead of confronting him with the reality of killing a 10-year-old boy.
It was quick, confident, cool, and very unique. That it was a twist out. Every one of them was almost military.
Somewhere in the subconscious of my mind, I've developed myself as just that, an assassin.
Yeah, Thayne, the natural assassin. This is typical of narcissistic people with antisocial personality disorder. They see themselves in a great light, even in horrendous situations. Now, almost proud of himself, Thayne proceeds to talk Dale through his 3 murders.
What happened?
I killed him. I wanted it to be as quick as possible, and unfortunately, I mean, wasn't long, but different from what you expected. He didn't understand. Why would you do this?
He asked you, what the f***, why you
What
doing?
the f***, stop, holy Jesus Christ, those things. Obviously, this is premeditated murder, is the term you used for it.
Did you go there planning to kill him?
Yes,
Thayne is on a roll. Here's a dark turn.
in my mind, it was a job. It was like a hit to me. And they were on the couch. I started chasing and Jesse ran into the back room. So I chased Jesse. He was the quickest. He just said he was scared.
It's hard to imagine what Jesse's last minutes were like. It's simply heartbreaking just to think about it. Then he saw Jason run for his life.
He came right back out. He had started to go into the woods and then walk back out. And I think maybe he would have died.
So in Thane's mind, it was an act of mercy that he slit Jason's throat, even though he was the one who Jason in the first place. Wrapping up his story, Thayne also implicated Bob in the murder.
He brought me a pair of clothes.
Were you surprised that he showed up with clothes? Or
Yeah.
was that part of the plan?
No, I was surprised that
Really?
he came back. Yeah.
What was Bob's role in this thing, if you will?
No. I mean, simply that he knew. He didn't want to see me go down for it, and that's all.
It turns out Bob advised Thayne to burn Jeff's truck and leave the state. He would be arrested for hindering apprehension and arson. Bob admitted to the police that he helped Thayne set fire to Jeffrey's truck and took Thayne to New Hampshire to stay with his son. But he claimed Thayne threatened his family with death if he didn't help him with the cover-up. Bob pleaded guilty to both charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Of all the people in the world, that dude, there's some very bad people up there. Why did you pick Jeff? He was what?
Dog.
He was a dog. Jeff was?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
Hearsay.
Okay.
Wow. Obviously, there is no evidence to support this outrageous claim. However, there is evidence to support he was a disabled war veteran taking care of his boy. It's hard to believe someone can be so cruel and still take the high horse, claiming it was an act of vigilante justice. His final comment as he was writing his statement?
And I just realized when I was taking a pee that the word they use for me is homicidal maniac. But that's the correct term, right?
Finally, Thayne confirmed he was a pure thrill killer.
Honestly, I did it to test myself.
To test yourself? What type of test was that?
I don't know. To see if I was proficient.
It's safe to say that when Thayne was crying earlier, those weren't tears of remorse, but they didn't work in his favor either. Thayne was handed down 3 life terms for the murders and an additional 15-year sentence for the arson to be served consecutively. Of course, Thayne fought for his freedom in any way possible. First, he pled not guilty. Then he pled not criminally responsible by reason of insanity. In 2020, he made headlines again after appealing his sentence for a 3rd time.
30-year-old Thayne Ormsby was found guilty of stabbing 55-year-old Jeffrey Ryan, his son, 10-year-old Jesse, and 30-year-old Jason DeHaan.
Thayne might really believe he could one day walk out of prison. This just shows how delusional he is and how little remorse he still has for the 3 victims. Thayne will never leave Maine State Prison, but that brings little closure to the families of the 3 people who died at the hands of this cruel 20-year-old. Hey you guys, thanks for watching. Leave me a comment and let me know what other crazy interrogations you know about. And before you leave, make sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell button. All right, see you next time.